Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas with Liz Hand, and we are talking money today.
Yes.
And particularly with women. So a woman suddenly, for whatever reason, finds herself suddenly single. Suddenly she is either the breadwinner or trying to figure out what to do with what has been saved up to this point. What's the first meeting with you like?
The first meeting is just kind of getting our bearings. Oftentimes, there are just some incremental steps that have to happen. No big decisions. It's mostly just changing investment accounts into her own name and making sure that beneficiaries are as she wants them to be. And I often just try to get the backstory. If it's my first time meeting with her, I'm wanting to hear who her husband was, who they were as a couple, what led to his passing, that kind of a thing.
So first of all, let's go back to just something you just said, making sure that everything's in her own name. Some people have still on their checks not one name or the other name, but they have one name and the other name. And it requires both signatures to be able to do practically anything. Would you advise unhooking that just for whatever reason? I mean, some people might have to go back that far.
Yeah, it's going every single piece of the puzzle. You're talking your car titles, you're talking your bank accounts, you're talking investment accounts, property, making sure it's labeled correctly. And they all take a process, and typically a paperwork process, credit cards, anything. Each of them have a specific process you have to go through, and it's not fun. And so each person you're having to explain, my husband passed away, this is what I need to do. And if there's they might be blocking you from trying to access information, and it's frustrating. So you have to turn in a death certificate or fill out a form or a combination of the two. You might have to go in.
And let's remember, you are in a state of shock and grief throughout that. So why add to all of that, all these other stresses? I'll just say, my father passed away very suddenly, and my mom found herself not able to access their bank account right at a time where you're needing to write checks to everyone. So, yeah, it's very, very difficult. So that might be a good place to start. What
Definitely.
conversations should husbands and wives have before this were to happen?
I always recommend for people to have an open conversation about what they have and where it is and who are the points of contact that the person would need to make. So in an ideal situation, a husband and wife are talking together. They have a folder that has a file for each of the investment accounts or insurances, and then a one-page description of name of professional and phone number or email, so that all the contact information is in one place.
And then your clients can say, oh, just go see Liz. She knows everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that professional is stepping in and helping you take those small steps at a time.
How much do you share with your children about this?
About money?
Yeah.
You're not asking me. You're just saying as
in
they're
general,
2 and 4.
yes.
I haven't shared anything.
Your
yet.
2 and 4-year-old? No, probably not yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, children, at what age do you start talking about money? And then what do you share with your adult children about this?
I usually recommend that people have that folder, that file, and just tell their children, adult children, this is where you find the file. It will have everything that you need, including estate documents or whatever. When a couple is getting into their 70s, 80s, 90s, that might be a good time to either pick one child or if they want a whole family to come. I always think it's a transfer of value. So if I have saved and accumulated all of this money, I have some intention behind it. And there's some things that I would want to happen with that money. Some of that is going to be to benefit my kids, and I want them to use it in the way that they want. Some of it is kind of my legacy. And so incorporating your kids into your conversation of your values and what you're planning to do with your money, that can be really healthy for the transfer of money eventually. So.
Yes, it would be nice to know that some work that you've done can go on to help others for years and years and decades to come. That would be great. You really want to bless your children, but you don't want them to go, hey, trip to Aruba next month on Mom and Dad. So,
or maybe you do.
Or maybe you do. That's right. So.
We have one client who he always said, I don't really want to give money at my passing. I want to be given while I'm living, so I'm knowing where it's going.
Oh,
but then also encouraging those bigger trips or some of those more lavish things.
Both is nice.
Yeah.
To be able to gift while you're living and then to be able to bless after you've gone on to an even better place and then let the children become good stewards of it then as they're earning their own as well.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not like you have to be supporting them forever.
Oh, right, yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Are there some kinds of things that women find to be greater hurdles that you find in approaching all of this?
I think the greatest hurdle for a woman is that longevity is on our side, I guess you could say, which means that our time frame for planning in retirement needs to be taken with more care. And so with the resources that we have to be very intentional about how we're drawing them down. So I like to say there are people who like to be accumulation specialists as financial advisors, helping you save as much as you can. Mm-hmm. I like to call myself a decumulation specialist. So I like to help people draw from their money in a very thoughtful way so that it lasts their lifetime. So that's one piece. And the other piece is healthcare in retirement.
Right.
And just thinking about, because of our longevity, we can get exposed to the dementia or Alzheimer's, and so preparing for that ahead of time.
And I've been also told that, you get excited about paying off your mortgage, but then just think of your health care bill as your next mortgage. I would just replace it, so don't get all that excited. Don't come
always
along.
Be saving.
Yes, always be saving. You've got a YouTube channel.
I do.
Tell me about it.
It's kind of a fun thing that I do for creative release, I would say, but also I love to educate. So I created a YouTube channel after I had my second son. I came off of maternity leave and just started into it. And I try to make weekly videos talking about practical advice in different ways, pieces that people are looking for online that I found. So it can be anything from what happens to my annuity after I pass away to when is the optimal time for a woman to retire to how do I draw from my 401k, those types of questions that you kind of want to ask somebody, but you might not always have access to the professional.
Women often are the person in the family who work part-time. Mm-hmm. So how does that affect the whole thing when suddenly they find themselves single?
Depending on if there's life insurance or enough savings in the picture, they might have to step up and work a little bit more, which can be hard because that's disrupting their lifestyle. And yeah, healthcare.
Healthcare
if
again.
You're under age 60, healthcare ends up being such a linchpin for the whole financial picture when you're under 65 and find yourself with either retiring early, being forced to quit, or becoming suddenly single.
Are you seeing that more often these days? Those particular scenarios?
Yes, I am.
That's interesting. All right. Well, we kind of kidded about what you would tell your own personal children who are 2 and 4, but it's probably never too early to begin talking about the whole idea of sharing and saving and being smart with those things we have, whether it's money or toys. When do you bring children into the conversation about money?
I think the more you can talk about it in a very casual conversation around the dinner table, the better. Money has been such a taboo topic. People just don't really know how to talk about it. So I was delighted the other day. I had to do an errand before I dropped off my son at school. And I said, I have to go over here and I have to get some money. It was from an ATM. And so I'm going to get some money and then I'll come back. And he said, oh, is this a bank? And I thought, he is the smartest kid I've ever raised.
Okay. On the flip side, my kids had wanted to go do something, and I said, I don't have any money today. And they said, well, Mom, just go to the bank and get some. Okay.
Right. They don't understand that it's not this endless pool of
First, we have got to put some
resources.
in before we can take some out.
Yeah.
It is interesting, though, that when children are raised in an atmosphere that money talk is never without an argument, then they kind of take that on with them. Does the two become connected? How do we teach children that money is neutral and we can talk about it in happy ways, not just angry ways? How do we do that?
There are some different ways that you can do that. A lot of it is giving them the chance to be responsible with their own money and maybe talking through their decisions. So I've heard of some people setting up a specific dollar amount that they give to their children on a monthly basis. When it's gone, it's gone. And so if they want to buy a gift for their friend or spend it on a game or go out to eat or whatever, they can make those decisions. But then when they come to the end of that, just having the hard conversation of, okay,
it's gone.
It's all an exchange of what you want. So you really wanted to buy X earlier this month, and that was great. It was fun. But it did mean that Y happened. And just walking them through those conversations.
In marriage, I'm told, and this is not personal, I'll just say that in case people start to worry about me, that money can really be the source of some very serious arguments. And so I would think a woman suddenly finding herself single might say, hot dog, I'm going to go get that thing that I was never allowed to have because that was always the source of so much contention.
Sure.
Do you find that? And how do you train a woman to cool it when suddenly she's got the purse strings?
I guess I would say that might be more apparent in a divorce situation than in a death situation. I see a lot more of clinging on to whatever is already established when there's a death. So, but yeah, just talking about it's maybe setting up regular meetings with that woman to just talk about what she's thinking about with the money, because at this point then she doesn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of with what she wants to use the money for. And yeah, just asking why she wants to purchase X piece, and if that's really what she wants.
Could be just to blow off some steam, right?
Yeah.
What would you say, other than we know healthcare is important, be thinking ahead, saving, always be saving is always a good plan. What other advice would you give the women listening today?
I guess saving is a lot easier than you think it can be. And so finding little ways to save is good. And you can build it into your lifestyle. I actually don't like budgeting. Most people will hear that and say, what? How can you not like budgeting? I like what I call reverse budgeting. And that's
explain that to us.
Building savings into your lifestyle first before you spend your paycheck. So in the case of, let's say I have a 401k and I'm contributing maybe 3% of my pay or 4% of my pay, increasing that over time and setting a date on my calendar when I increase it. It's not my feelings entering in. It is my planning. So I know on my birthday every year I bump up my savings by 1%. That type of thing where you're increasing the amount of savings in the background, you're not going to feel it in your month-to-month cash flow. It's not going to keep you from even buying those shoes or that coffee or whatever, but it will put you in a better place long-term.
Oh, my goodness. That's so good. How do we find you on YouTube?
Oh, yes. Well, if you search Happiness IRA or Liz Hand, you will find me. The URL is youtube.com/Elizabeth Hand CFP.
CFP, okay. But it's Happiness IRA.
Yes.
How'd you come up with that title?
I was working with a business coach, and he said something to the effect of, in life, we have to build meaning and happiness. And so retirement is a twofold issue. You have to save for that point of stopping working, and then you also have to build your significance outside of your job. And so that was kind of my thought process behind it.
Such good and wise advice. Liz Hand, thank you so much for all you're doing in our community.
It's a pleasure to be here.